The old house was too quiet. Elena had only come back for a sweater she'd left behind. The night was cool, the kind that carried the perfume of rain-soaked earth through the cracked window panes. Her father wasn't home, a business trip, as usual, but his lifelong friend, Daniel, had been staying in the guest room. Daniel, the man her father trusted like a brother. The man who had always seemed larger than life, with his tailored suits, watchful gaze, and voice that could command a room without raising in volume. She hadn't expected to hear laughter as she stepped inside. Not just laughter, but hers. Claire's. Elena froze halfway up the staircase, hand clutching the banister. Her best friend's voice spilled down the hall, breathless, threaded with something between giggles and gasps. A low murmur answered, male, deliberate, the kind of tone that wrapped around the edges of your will and squeezed. Daniel. Her stomach twisted. Her best friend, and her father's best friend? She should have turned around, but curiosity burned hotter than propriety. Step by cautious step, she followed the sound to the half-open door at the end of the hall. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. Claire knelt on the floor beside Daniel's chair, hair tumbling over her flushed cheeks. Daniel didn't look flustered. He didn't look caught. He looked in control, one hand resting possessively on the curve of Claire's jaw, the other lazily twirling a silk tie he'd clearly taken from his own collar. Elena, Claire whispered when she noticed the shadow in the doorway. Her lips parted in a guilty smile. But Daniel didn't flinch. He turned his head slowly, eyes locking onto Elena's, pinning her like a moth to glass. Come in, he said. Not a request. A command. Her throat tightened. She should run. She should scream. Instead, she pushed the door wider and stepped across the threshold, heart hammering with something far more complicated than fear. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears as the door clicked shut behind her. She hadn't touched it. Daniel had. A subtle movement of his hand, the sound of the latch sliding into place, and suddenly she was enclosed in the dim-lit guest room with them. Claire shifted on the floor, smoothing her skirt as though Elena had simply interrupted a study session. But the flush on her cheeks, the glint in her eyes, betrayed something else entirely. Elena, Claire's voice was a teasing lilt, light and reckless. You weren't supposed to see this. Daniel remained seated, his posture unhurried, sovereign in its stillness. The tie slipped through his fingers like a ribbon of ink. His gaze never wavered from Elena, studying her the way a chess master considers his next move. You've always been curious, he said. The words carried weight, as though he wasn't just speaking of this moment, but of every sideways glance she'd ever stolen when he visited, every time her pulse quickened at his presence without her understanding why. Elena swallowed hard. I should go. Should you? His voice cut through the air like velvet over steel. Or do you want to stay? Her breath caught. Claire's soft laugh filled the pause. She reached for Elena's hand, tugging her closer. It's not what you think, she whispered conspiratorially, though her smirk told a different story. It's better. Daniel's hand rested on Claire's shoulder, steadying her. His authority was palpable, as if even the air in the room waited for his permission to move. Show her, he instructed, his tone deep, assured. Claire's grin widened. With a practiced grace, she leaned against Daniel's knee, tilting her face upward in open surrender. His fingers threaded into her hair, gentle yet firm, holding her in place. The intimacy of the gesture sent a shiver racing down Elena's spine. Elena's instinct screamed to flee, but her body betrayed her. She stayed rooted, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The air seemed heavier, charged with something she didn't dare name. Do you see? Daniel asked. His eyes were on Elena, sharp and knowing. Control and trust. She gives, I take. She bends, I shape. Nothing is forced. It's chosen. The tie dangled from his hand like an unspoken promise. Claire's eyes glittered with anticipation as she pressed closer to him, her movements equal parts daring and obedient. Elena's voice trembled. "Why are you showing me this?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, one brow arching. "Because you came looking. And because you haven't left." The truth of it burned through her. She hadn't left. Even as shame pricked at her skin, even as confusion warred with desire, she lingered. Claire tugged again at Elena's hand, pulling her closer until she stood within reach of Daniel's chair. Her best friend's whisper was warm against her ear. "Stay. You'll understand." Daniel's hand rose, palm open. Slowly, deliberately, he extended the tie toward her. The silk draped between his fingers, waiting. "This is an invitation," he said. His gaze pinned her as surely as any knot. "You may refuse. You may walk away. But if you accept," his tone darkened, thick with gravity, "you step into my world. My rules. My control." The silence stretched, taut as a pulled cord. Elena's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She stared at the strip of silk, at the man who held it, at the best friend who seemed to glow with secret knowledge. Every nerve in her body screamed with warning and yearning all at once. Her hand lifted before she could stop it. The silk was cool against her fingertips. Daniel's mouth curved in the faintest hint of a smile. Not triumph. Not smugness. Something deeper, as though she had simply fulfilled what he'd known all along. "Good," he murmured. His voice was quiet, but the room vibrated with it. "Now the game begins." The silk slipped from Daniel's hand into Elena's, and the weight of it was startling. Such a light piece of fabric, yet it carried the gravity of a contract. Daniel didn't rush. He never did. Instead, he regarded her with a calmness that made her pulse race all the faster. "You've accepted the invitation," he said. "But that doesn't mean you understand it. Trust must be built, control must be earned." Claire leaned against his knee like she belonged there, her smile both mischievous and reassuring. "He'll never hurt you," she whispered to Elena, squeezing her wrist. "Unless you ask him to." The words sent Elena's thoughts spinning. She wanted to laugh them off, to call it all a strange performance. But Daniel's gaze stripped the pretense away. He wasn't playing. This was something deeper, something elemental. "Give me your hands," he instructed. Her breath caught, but she obeyed, placing her trembling hands in his. His palms were warm, steady, his touch firm but not cruel. He looped the tie around her wrists with a practiced ease, not pulling tight, only crossing the silk so it kissed her skin. "Notice," he said quietly. "You're not bound. At any moment, you can slip free. The only restraint here is the one you choose to honor." Elena tested it, flexing her wrists. It was true, she could have pulled away. Yet she didn't. Her heart thundered at the realization. The tie held her because she wanted it to. Daniel leaned closer, his voice a murmur that seemed to echo inside her. "Submission is not weakness. It is power given, not stolen. Claire understands this." Claire tilted her chin up proudly, basking in his approval. Elena felt the heat of jealousy flicker, though she didn't know whether it was for Claire's boldness or for Daniel's attention. "Stand," he said. The command slid through her like a current, and she rose before she had time to consider. Daniel didn't move, but somehow he filled the room even from his chair. His stillness was a kind of dominance, the quiet assertion that everyone else revolved around him. "Walk to the mirror." She obeyed, silk brushing her skin, steps unsteady. The tall mirror on the far wall reflected the tableau, a young woman, wrists crossed in front of her, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. Behind her sat the older man, composed and unreadable, with Claire at his knee like a loyal devotee. "Look," Daniel instructed. Elena did. The sight was dizzying. She barely recognized the girl in the mirror, not the careful daughter, not the polite friend. This reflection was raw, exposed, trembling on the edge of something vast. Do you see her? His voice was low, magnetic. Yes, she whispered. That is who you really are. Not the mask you wear for your father. Not the obedient little friend. His words cut to the bone. That girl in the mirror is mine to shape, if you choose to let me. Her knees weakened. She gripped the silk harder, clinging to the thin barrier between control and surrender. Claire rose and came to stand beside her, their reflections doubling in the glass. He changed me, she admitted softly. I never knew how much I wanted to give until he showed me how. She touched Elena's bound wrists, her smile gentle. He can do the same for you. Elena's breath shuddered out. And if I say no? Daniel's voice was steady, absolute. Then I let you go. And we never speak of it again. The simplicity of it stunned her. There was no trap, no trick. The choice was hers. But that freedom made the weight of the decision all the heavier. She closed her eyes, every nerve screaming with the knowledge that she stood at a threshold she could never uncross. Then, slowly, deliberately, she nodded. When she opened her eyes again, Daniel was standing behind her. She hadn't heard him rise, but there he was, his presence filling the space. His hands came to rest lightly on her shoulders, grounding her. Good, he murmured. His reflection in the mirror was steady, unshaken, while hers trembled with anticipation. You'll learn. You'll stumble. You'll crave. And I'll be there to catch you, to push you, to own what you give me. The silk slipped tighter around her wrists, not enough to bind, but enough to remind. Enough to mark the moment she had stepped willingly into his world. The silk pressed lightly against Elena's wrists, not a prison but a promise. She stared at herself in the mirror, two women reflected side by side, and the man who seemed to command the air itself behind them. Daniel's hands rested on her shoulders, steady and warm. Close your eyes, he ordered. Her lashes fluttered shut. The world collapsed into sensation, the heat of his palms, the whisper of Claire's breath beside her, the thunder of her own pulse. Do you trust me? His question was simple, but it carried the weight of everything. Elena swallowed hard. Yes. Say it again. I trust you. The words trembled out, but once spoken, they steadied her. Daniel's tone softened, though it lost none of its authority. Good. Then surrender. She didn't know how. Not truly. But then Claire's fingers found hers, entwining gently around her bound wrists. It's easier than you think, her friend whispered. Stop fighting yourself. Just fall. And somehow she did. She let the frantic questions scatter, let go of the need to analyze, to justify. She let the current take her. Daniel sensed the shift immediately. His voice deepened, resonant with approval. There. That's it. The silk slipped tighter, not painfully, just enough to remind her that she had given something away. She felt lighter for it, as though part of her burden had been lifted and placed into his keeping. Open your eyes. She did. In the mirror, the difference was unmistakable. Her reflection no longer looked cornered, but calm, wide-eyed, alive. A girl transformed not by force, but by choice. Daniel studied her reflection with quiet satisfaction. Beautiful. Claire leaned her head against Elena's shoulder, her smile playful but tinged with reverence. Told you it was better. Elena's lips curved into a shaky laugh, half disbelief, half exhilaration. She had walked into the room expecting betrayal, scandal, chaos. Instead, she had found freedom. Daniel turned her gently to face him. Even standing so close, he didn't need to raise his voice. His authority came from somewhere deeper than volume. Understand this, Elena. From this moment forward, every step you take with me is deliberate. There is no accident, no excuse. You give. I take. And I give back more than you imagined you could hold. Her throat tightened, not with fear but with anticipation. And if I falter? His smile was slow, dangerous in its certainty. Then I catch you. That is the privilege of surrender. You fall, but you are never broken. Claire squeezed her bound hands, her eyes shining with something like pride. He means it. He always does. Elena nodded, the last of her resistance dissolving. She didn't understand everything, not the rules, not the rituals, not the strange hunger that coiled in her chest, but she understood enough. Enough to know that she wanted to step further. Daniel lifted her wrists between them, the silk glimmering in the lamplight. He pressed a kiss just above the knot, not tender, not romantic, but claiming. The gesture made her breath hitch. You belong to yourself first, he said. Never forget that. But when you choose to give yourself to me, I will not waste it. The promise in his tone struck deeper than any touch. For the first time in years, Elena felt entirely present, not the dutiful daughter, not the cautious friend, but something raw and real. A woman standing on the precipice of her own desire, ready to leap. Claire laughed softly, breaking the heavy silence. Welcome to the club, she teased, though there was no mockery in her tone. Daniel released the silk, letting it fall loose around Elena's wrists. That's enough for tonight, he said. His voice carried finality, but also a strange kindness. Too much at once breaks the lesson. Small steps, well placed, take you further. Elena blinked at him, confused. That's it. For now. His eyes lingered on hers, steady and unshakable. You'll crave more. That's how I'll know you're ready. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. Crave more. The words branded her. And deep down, she already knew he was right. The silk fell soundlessly to the floor, a ribbon marking the line Elena had crossed. Daniel stepped back, his authority intact even in retreat. That's all for tonight, he repeated, voice firm but not unkind. Savor what you felt. Let it burn through your thoughts. And when you're ready, you'll come back to me. Elena's lips parted with unspoken questions, but none found voice. She only nodded, her pulse still racing, her skin still humming with the aftershocks of surrender. Claire touched her arm lightly, guiding her toward the door. Her smile was gentle, even tender. It's a lot, isn't it? The first time always is. Elena glanced back once more. Daniel stood by the chair where it had all begun, his figure framed in shadow and lamplight. He looked unshaken, immovable, as though everything had unfolded exactly as he had foreseen. And maybe it had. The door closed behind them, and the quiet of the hallway seemed foreign after the charged stillness of the room. Elena pressed her back against the wall, her breath coming in shallow bursts. I don't know what just happened, she admitted, half laughing, half terrified. Claire grinned knowingly. You surrendered. That's all. But Elena broke off, searching for words. How could she explain the way her body had felt both trapped and free, the way her mind had balanced on a knife's edge of fear and desire? Claire tilted her head, studying her. You liked it. It wasn't a question. Elena hesitated. Then, quietly, she said yes. The confession settled into the air like a secret vow. Claire squeezed her hand. Good. Because this is only the beginning. Trust me, once you step into Daniel's world, you never see yourself the same way again. Elena shivered, though not from cold. She knew Claire was right. Some invisible tether now bound her, not the silk tie, but the memory of it, the knowledge that she had chosen to let it hold her. They descended the stairs together, the echo of their footsteps muffled by the old wood. When they reached the door, Elena hesitated, glancing back at the staircase that led to Daniel's room. Her heart ached with something dangerously close to longing. You'll be back, Claire said softly, watching her. We both know it. Elena didn't argue. She only pushed the door open, stepping into the night air. The cool breeze met her heated skin, grounding her, but it didn't wash away the imprint of his presence. She carried it with her in her wrists, in her breath, in the part of her soul that now belonged to something she couldn't name. As she walked away, she realized Daniel had been right. She would crave more. And when the craving grew unbearable, she would return. Because surrender, once tasted, was impossible to forget.